Hey, so some of you guys are starting in on your vinyl album collection and kind of making a journey out of that. And that's a really great journey to be on. One thing that I think probably doesn't get talked about early enough in the vinyl album collection process is what type of turntable and what type of cartridge you're using. I want you to think about how much money you're spending on these albums. Maybe $15 to $20 for something that's used, unless you're finding something real bargain. But if it's in really good shape, it's a quality album that's kind of wanted. Used, 15 to 20 bucks is not an unusual price. For new vinyl, you may be spending $40 or more. In fact, you may be spending way more. And a lot of us start this out with a turntable that we bought at the store for like maybe 99 bucks. Now, one of the things I hear about vinyl is that it's an inherently destructive process. So I think it's talked about that way because people expect their vinyl to degrade. And I'm not going to deny that it degrades, but it doesn't have to degrade to the degree a lot of it happens. So the thing that doesn't get discussed enough is this little guy. This is called the cartridge. And on the cartridge, you find the needle, also known as the stylus. Those of us in high-end world refer to that as the stylus, but I'll call it the needle or the stylus interchangeably for the purposes of this video. Cartridges can be very expensive. They can also be very, very cheap. And it should be understood that a great cartridge with a great stylus is going to help you maintain your vinyl collection a little bit. So let's talk about the different types of needles, because really that's what this is. Most of this is about. I'm not going to say it's all about that, but most of it is about that. We have really, people will say there's more, but let's keep it simple. I'd say there's three pretty distinct types of cartridges. You have, not cartridges, needles. You have the spherical, also known as conical needle. You have the elliptical needle, and then you have something that gets several different names, but it's kind of variations on the same thing. It's the fine line stylus or fine line needle. You'll hear that referred to as Shibata. Sometimes it's ultra fine line, but really let's just kind of categorize three things because let's not get overly complicated. Spherical, elliptical, fine line. We're going to take a look at each one of those and kind of look at the differences. So, pulling up the first one, the spherical. This is kind of the baseline. And a lot of you guys are used to seeing or used to listening to music with the bass line. And let me first qualify this by saying it doesn't mean that you have a piece of junk needle because you're playing a needle that's a spherical needle. DJs use spherical almost exclusively because when they scratch, the spherical is designed for that, and it works great for it. And there are varying levels of quality in a spherical stylus, especially based mostly on the build of the cartridge itself. So you have spherical. Now the thing I want you to pay attention to is the amount of contact that you can see on this spherical stylus with the groove. As you look at that, you can see a certain degree of contact. Now, as we go into an elliptical, I want you to pay attention to how that contact changes. And here we go. As you can see, the elliptical has gone to a level of greater contact with the groove. Now, let's think very simply already. What happens if you're making more contact with the groove? you're finding more vibrations. There's vibrations in those grooves. And if you find more vibrations, you found more music. So you can understand going from a spherical to an elliptical, you're going, if the cartridge was designed exactly the same, except that little change, you're going to find more music. Now, let's go on. The next level is going to be fine line. And as you can see, fine line goes even deeper into the groove, and your contact surface area is even greater. Therefore, you got it. You just found more vibrations, more music. Now, let's think about one other thing that's happening there. Let's think about, now we're talking microscopic stuff right now. That's very fine. Like, you need something to really magnify this to actually see it. But even on this level, it matters. You're literally talking about a difference in weight distribution. So as that needle is lowered into the groove, more of the groove is carrying the weight. Therefore, there's less weight per, well, I don't want to say per square inch, because that would, like, we're talking per square micro inch, whatever. But you can imagine that that weight has distributed more, and therefore less groove wear and tear as you play your vinyl. Now, obviously that's going to be a little bit dependent on how you set up your turntable. You want to have a turntable that has a counterweight on the tone arm, and you want to make sure that you have that counterweight adjusted appropriately so that you have the correct amount of tracking force that's going into that groove. But in general, that's the basics. Now, the other thing that this little cartridge has in it is magnets and coils. Now, it may have one magnet and two coils, or it may have one coil and two magnets. Now, electroacoustically, that's basically the same thing. They're going to create a similar charge, but they're going to create a charge at a different degree of intensity, if that makes sense. So let's talk about let's discuss what I'm talking about. You have your needle, your stylus, and it is connected to something called a cantilever. And that cantilever has one of two things on it. It either has a coil or it has a magnet. The magnet, as you can imagine, a hunk of iron is a little heavier than a coil. All right? Now, let's say it has a magnet. It's moving between two coils. It's doing its wiggling, the coils are staying stationary. If it's a coil, the coil's doing all the wiggling, and there's two magnets being stationary. Electroacoustically, that's the same thing. But, like I said earlier, that hunk of iron is heavier than a coil. And when you take something that's heavier and stick it in a groove, it's going to plow the groove more than something that's lighter weight. The lighter weight thing is going to be a little more sensitive inside that groove, and it's going to find a little bit more definition to the sound. You might find cleaner articulations. You might find a little bit more punch. Also, when you start doing a combination of, well, I've got a moving coil and elliptical, I've got a moving coil and fine line, or I have moving magnet and it's spherical, or moving magnet and it's an elliptical, or it's moving magnet and it's fine line. All of those things are going to play into it as well. So there's a lot of different options, and they actually sound very different, especially when you play it through a nicer quality system. So the main thing you want to do is you want to find out which one's going to sound best for you, which one is going to deliver the best experience for you, and obviously find something that fits inside your budget. Vassal High End is here in the 4 states to help you discover that very thing. Give me a call, 417-434-5049.